So here we go with the veins. Now we already talked about a few of those when we were talking about the surface of the heart. We had superior vena cava, which is a vein. We had inferior vena cava, which is also a vein. Remember, this was an artery, even though it's blue. These were our veins in red. These were called pulmonary veins because they carry the fresh blood back to the left atrium. Okay? So now, on this big model here, again, we see what? Superior vena cava is leading to the right atrium. We also see inferior vena cava leading also to the right atrium. Okay? So those are what they look like on the big model. Superior vena cava, inferior vena cava. Now, we said that superior vena cava drains the top half of us. So everything, all the deoxygenated blood from the head down. Okay? The head and arms down. So how does it do that? So superior vena cava is here. It has left brachiocephalic vein, right brachiocephalic vein. Now, right brachiocephalic vein is almost non-existent, but it's right in this area right before it splits. Okay? So this is right brachiocephalic vein. This is going to be your left brachiocephalic vein. Now, what does brachial mean? Brachial means arm, cephalic means head. So that must mean that brachiocephalic is going to give a branch that goes to the head and a branch that goes to the arm. So brachiocephalic, this is going to be my jugular, left jugular. Jugular drains the head, all the deoxygenated blood from the head. Left subclavian is going to drain all the deoxygenated blood from my left arm. So that's how we get brachiocephalic, because of the jugular and the subclavian vein coming together to create brachiocephalic. So again, we have superior vena cava receiving blood from left brachiocephalic, right brachiocephalic, left jugular, left subclavian. So on this side, we have right subclavian, right jugular. And for the most part, your veins and your arteries are going to carry the same name, especially if it's a major vessel. We got some name changes that have happened, and we'll talk about those. But for the most part, if you know the arteries, you know the veins. So superior vena cava, right brachiocephalic, left brachiocephalic, left jugular, left subclavian, right subclavian, right jugular. Now we'll follow the right side on around. So we have now brachial vein. Brachial vein. Brachial vein is then going to cross the middle portion of the elbow, which you see here, and this is going to be our median cubital vein. Median cubital vein, which you should be familiar with if you've ever been to the doctor. It's a major injection point here to where they can draw blood from. So median cubital vein. Median cubital vein. It then continues down on the thumb side, just like the artery did, as radial vein, and on the pinky side as ulnar vein. So this is how all the deoxygenated blood from the arms, head, all drained by way of the superior vena cava into the right atrium. Now what we need to do is we need to look at the inferior vena cava that's draining the bottom half of us. So all of this is inferior vena cava. This is one time where you're going to see a name change with the artery versus the vein. Remember, this artery was called abdominal aorta at this point. Abdominal aorta, there is no such thing as an abdominal aorta vein. There's no such thing. It's abdominal aorta here, but it's inferior vena cava the whole way through until it splits into, now we go back to some common names, left common iliac vein, just like we had with the artery, right common iliac vein, just like we had with the artery. So don't call this abdominal aorta vein. That doesn't exist. This is inferior vena cava the whole way until it splits into left common iliac vein and right common iliac vein. Now also, this common iliac vein proceeds down the medial side of the leg as great saphenous vein. Great saphenous. On the lateral side of the leg, which is here, this is going to be your femoral vein. So femoral vein runs on the lateral side of the leg. The medial side is called great saphenous vein, which is a little bit different from when we called this femoral artery. Okay? Femoral artery, but great saphenous vein on the medial side of the leg. and then we have femoral vein on the lateral side of the leg. Then on the surface of the heart, we had coronary arteries. Watch the name change, coronary arteries, but the veins are called cardiac veins. Cardiac veins. Cardiac veins. Coronary arteries, but cardiac veins. Okay? That's it to blood vessels. So make sure you review all of that. We'll go over the layers of the blood vessel wall, but I do want you guys to make sure you can trace blood flow, know what valves it goes through, know what chambers it goes from one to the next, what blood vessels is pumped into. Make sure you continually repeat these videos over and over again until you get it, and make sure you can go over this whole body and know which blood vessels are which. I can promise you it'll show up on test time. Then your objectives has it all written out for you here. It has arteries all listed. Then it has your veins all listed. So it tells you in detail what you need to know. Don't forsake doing your lab objectives too. That's going to help you. And then it's telling you what all to study for test purposes here. So we're going to go over the artery, the layers to the artery, and then we'll be done. So this is going to be a general artery and vein model here. So you have 3 layers to your blood vessels. Really easy. Tunica externa. Tunica just means layer or vascularity to a vessel. So tunica externa is going to be, of course, the outside. Tunica media, the middle portion. Tunica interna, the very inside. So 3 layers: externa, media, interna. So tunica externa, tunica media, tunica interna. The vein has the same blood vessels or blood layers as the arteries do, except it has this little guy here, and that's called a valve. That's how I know this is a vein and not an artery. Arteries don't have valves. Veins are the only one that has valves, and those veins are responsible for pumping blood. So veins, the more you move, the more the blood can return back to the heart. If you don't move, you've seen people who are bedridden and stuff like that. Those of you who are going into that field, you'll be working with people like that. And what happens is they have to work their legs so that they can return the blood back to the heart, or else it just sits there and pools in their legs, like in varicose veins or whatever you want to call it. And that's because the more you work, the more you move, the more you walk, the more exercising you do, that's going to help the blood return back to the heart by way of these valves. And so this is simply called valve of vein. Valve of vein, but it has the same 3 layers. What we're looking at here would be tunica interna, you have media, and then you have external on the outside. So if this was labeled, you would just say valve of vein. Again, there's no valve in the actual artery. Also in your book on page, give me 1 second here, on page, I just had it. On page 275, I want you to put a star by figure 37.5. This is showing you microscopically what the lumen of a vein look like versus the lumen of an artery. So make sure you know what that looks like. Okay? If you have any questions, email me, although I might not answer because I'll be on vacation. But anyway, send me an email and I'll do the best I can with answering your questions. Thanks.